terrifying. I had read that people could purge addictions and old, quote, stuff, the life baggage each one of us carries, but nothing could have prepared me for it. Watching my jaw unhinge and a black viper pour out of my mouth, my body clenching like a medieval bone crusher and geysers of unknown substance evacuating my stomach. We had fasted for the entire day before the ceremony, so what was it? I had sat squarely situated in not just the fear of death by my consummation of ayahuasca, but a fear of death so primitive that it simultaneously conjured the most timeless visions of finality. Hubble-like pictures of dead stars, forest men killing animals and drinking their blood, the underground plates of the earth moving back and forth, the blank stare of a decomposing body, and the nebulous floating void of that which is not physical but always present, that blank container from which all life passes in and out, the place I sat experiencing for the first time as I watched myself purge every last inch of a giant black viper. Realizing that such little time had passed since I drank my cup of ayahuasca, I wondered if I would make it through to the other side. Could I make it until morning without losing my mind? And if I did lose my mind, would it ever come back? We have to learn how to say yes to our experiences, especially if we want to stay centered during an ayahuasca ceremony. Ethan blew smoke over my face again, and I felt the leaves of his shakapa rattle brush across my cheeks as another out-of-body vision ensued. Spouts of flame shot up from the oily muck of a black-red fire swamp. Back in the mesa, my body sweated profusely. Each reminder of my body, each droplet of sweat, translated itself into the spouts of flame that shot up from the swamp. Next to the swamp was a stairway that reached from the pits of the bog into a faraway light. Each step upward was painted in silver hieroglyphics, like nothing I had ever seen before. The letters and words on the stairway were more coherent with every ascending step, but the light in the heavens seemed too far away from me. I can't do this, I said. Believe in yourself, Ethan answered. It's too much to expect of someone, I argued. There was no reply. I woke in what must have been the ceremonial lodge. It was strangely quiet. The rain was gone, the jungle noises were gone, the Ikaro was gone, Cucaracha was silent. I could not sense Ethan's presence or that of anybody else in the mesa with me. For several moments everything was empty, and then I heard the sounds of one man purging. I tried to determine which group member was struggling, but I could not trace the sounds back to anybody specific. Whoever the man was, it quickly ceased to matter. He was purging so hard that it was insignificant. He was beyond reach and impaled upon his most arrogant delusions of grandeur. An unseen hand squeezed toxic waste out of him like a wet sponge in the humid jungle grass. As the man continued to purge, I saw the dragon again, the same dragon that had eaten and regurgitated the old man from my very first vision. It wrapped and coiled around the man's chest and throat, but I still could not make out his face. The rainbow-colored serpent squeezed chunks of black matter from the man's stomach into his purge bucket. I saw the man's inner organs. They were pink and red. His veins and arteries and nerve branches glowed and trembled. Each time he vomited, the dragon squeezed its grip tighter, and the man's eyeballs jutted farther out of his skull. The purging sounds were so impersonal they were almost beautiful, almost transcendent. But trying to relax into the sounds, I felt something tugging at my very essence, as if I were a gray puddle pushed by the wind. Who is that purging? Then I cupped my hands over my ears and momentarily saw myself curled into the fetal position, somewhere, disoriented and trying to escape. But escape from what, exactly? Not the effects of the ayahuasca or the visions, but something deeper, something residing at my core, the malignant feeling of being insignificant and alone in a universe far too vast and vicious for me to make headway. If it was my responsibility to find happiness, then I would never succeed. Who could? I can't do it, I blurted out. Yes, you can, Ethan's voice answered. As if on command from Ethan's voice, I found myself kneeling again in front of my purge bucket. I could feel my body. Thunder clapped above the mesa. Rain pounded the lodge roof so hard I could barely hear Cucaracha howling outside. People were vomiting around me. The medicine song darted through the circle like a jungle snipe. I saw piranhas swimming through the air and devouring demon-like entities as they left people's bodies. The rainbow serpent circled the mesa and the lodge rafters, looking down and watching over us. The guardian creatures were being commanded by Ethan's songs. Somebody screamed, "I can't do it!" "It's impossible," another man yelled. It became clear to me, as though a black velvet curtain had been slowly pulled back, that the person I could not see purging in the dark had been each one of us, suffering in exactly the same way. The man I had not been able to identify in the darkness was not anybody in particular, but rather the entire mesa together. The illusion of absolute individuality was exposed. It was as if all of the existentialist philosophers I had ever read and loved had instantly become people no different from me, revealing suffering for what it often is, a collective state of being, something we each feel despite our stories and reasons, not because of them. "We can all walk toward the light," Ethan said, "one moment at a time. We make it through the night by focusing our minds, believing in ourselves, and believing in each other." "I don't believe in myself," I said. My words choked in my throat as another stream of vomit left my mouth. "I don't believe in any one of you either. I'm sorry." I pounded my fists on the floor of the mesa. "I'm a tourist. I admit it. Please make this stop." "Don't exaggerate. Life gets so much easier when you stop lying to yourself. It took you courage to drink ayahuasca," Ethan said. "You're being honest right now, not cowardly. This is your moment. Right now, you are becoming a man. You wanted to drink ayahuasca. This is what ayahuasca medicine is about. It's about getting real." I vomited once more. I could see myself changing before my eyes. I saw visions of myself as an adult, calmer and more reflective. What did I know, anyway? I was experiencing something so far out of the ordinary, so transcending of my everyday boundaries. What could I possibly claim to know with absolute certainty? Knowing I would never be the same again, and knowing I could never capture the profundity of what was taking place in the mesa, I knew that I would become a kinder and more humble person. I would not become kinder because the ayahuasca was imparting a moral lesson, but rather because there would be no other choice. I would have to admit from that moment forward that I did not have the slightest grasp on anything. My only truth would be the simplest statements. I'm breathing and my heart is beating. I'm alive. Ethan sat in his rocking chair, collected and professional. "That last Icaro melody was Domingo's," he said. "It was taught to him by Arturo. They taught me that Icaro during my apprenticeship. So that was an official medicine song reading from my teachers. They hope they can meet you next time you visit El Puma Negro." "Next time?" a woman asked. "Of course," Ethan joked. "You'll be ready to do this all over again by tomorrow afternoon." The woman vomited and then began to laugh. "I had no idea something like this was even possible," I said. In the brief moments of clarity that followed my first round of purging, I reflected on the difficulty of explaining ayahuasca to empirically minded, quote, scientific people. I thought specifically of my best friend back in the United States, a PhD chemistry student and intern at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Before I had left for Peru, he said to me, "You know your brain can produce some pretty amazing things. That doesn't mean you're going to be entering the spirit world." As I briefly thought of my friend, piranhas swimming in the air above my head, I felt an overwhelming sense of love for him. I imagined hearing his commentary next to me in the mesa, and knew that he would probably not be able to rely on his empirical reductionism to quite the same extent. Even if my brain had been firing randomly and creating the spirit world I had entered, even if it could all be reduced to some, quote, thing, then what chance occurrence of reality had created creatures so puzzled by their own existence? And how had ancient beings discovered this unusual drink? And how had they passed down the exact recipe for hundreds, maybe thousands of years? But the more I pondered in the mesa, the more my philosophical questions and answers became nothing more than another self-made virus, the equivalent of pulling my own hair on the mesa floor, pounding my fists until I would purge again with the help of a gringo shaman and a rainbow-colored dragon. I had absolutely no clue about any of this, I said. "Of course not," Ethan replied. "You can't know until you find out." "You drank a full cup, didn't you?" "That's right," he answered. "How did you learn to lead these ceremonies?" "With good teachers and a lot of hard work," he said. Throughout the course of nearly 5 years, Ethan had lived and trained in the jungle, fishing for his food in the Amazon River, bathing with natives, collecting and harvesting his own plants and healing herbs, and learning the medicine path from his maestros. After hundreds of ceremonies and dozens of rigorous plant diets and training, Ethan had earned the title of practitioner only months before I had arrived in the Amazon. Arturo and Domingo had given him full responsibility for the mesa and had instructed him to perform ceremonies alone for the time being. From the first day Ethan had begun studying, whenever locals asked Domingo and Arturo about training a white man, they would say, "We've seen that he has a good heart. We've received the vision to train him correctly." The ayahuasca medicine vine was first given to the people of the forest as a gift from the one who planted the garden. It was given to the people for healing. It should be given to the rest of the world in the same way. Let fall on us what will. We are going to train this man to be an ayahuasca shaman. It was only the midpoint of my first ayahuasca ceremony. While the rain softened, each one of us in the mesa enjoyed a small break, the sounds of shared laughter and the feeling of our body on the solid earth. Ethan was quiet in his rocking chair, rocking back and forth in the dark, whistling lightly under his breath and puffing a mystical Malaprop cigar. So that's it. Thanks, guys. So I'm happy, if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to do my best.
What if you drank that tea out in the desert? Do you still have visions of jaguars?
I think so. I mean, my experience of drinking ayahuasca outside of South America, because this is obviously a big, like I mentioned, the shamans coming up through the United States and this whole movement that's happening very underground. Because the brew was made from the plant fibers of the jungle, it really contains the spirits of the jungle. So you can feel the presence of a different landscape. You could feel the mountains, I'm sure, if you did it here near Asheville. You could feel the rocks and the rivers, and those things would become animate, and probably you could connect to the life force of them. But the jungle comes with the plant. It's incredible. It's pretty cool.
So, how did you pick your shaman? I mean, was it by a referral? How'd that whole process work, and how long did you stay in ceremony?
Sure. So it was really, I mean, it was sort of really cavalier in the beginning. It was like, the book tells the story really well of how I came to, where the desire came from to go and how it all kind of unfolded. But